In every sport, there's one man who changes everything. One man who doesn't just play the game, but changes it. Football had Pele, basketball had Jordan, boxing had Ali. But what about golf? Golf has had its icons. Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy. Men who have lit up the fairways, shattered records, and redefined what was possible. But behind all of them, there was one man that all of them looked up to. The original genius, the man who played for nothing but pride and still beat everyone. Some might call him the father of golf itself, Robert Tyre Jones Jr. Let me tell you the iconic story of the man who gave the game its soul. Bobby Jones Jr., the golfer who won everything yet never turned professional. Bobby Jones was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1902. As a child, he was sickly, thin, weak, and often ill. As a result, doctors told his parents to find a way to build his strength. And that's when Jones's father, Colonel Robert Bermudez Jones, suggested he play golf. But little did Robert know that his son was not just going to play the game, but redefine it forever. At just 6 years old, Jones won his first tournament at Eastlake Golf Club, where he spotted Stuart Maiden, the Scottish club pro. Every day, Jones started watching Maiden play and mimicking him. He never had a formal lesson, and he didn't need one. By 14, he was playing in the US Amateur, and by 15, he had already won the Georgia State Amateur Championship. That win caught the eye of the US Golf Association, who invited him to play in the US Amateur at Marion near Philadelphia. The boy was beating grown men by miles, but talent for Jones came with torment. He played beautifully, but just one bad shot had the power to completely dismantle him. He would curse, toss clubs, and lose himself completely. At an exhibition game in Boston, he missed an easy shot on the 8th hole. That made his face flush red. Then, with fury, he threw the ball deep into the woods. When his friend Alexa Sterling tried to calm him down, he snapped. Perfection wasn't just the goal for Jones, it was the burden he carried every step of the way. But he never stopped. He toured the US during World War I from 1917 to 1918, playing exhibition matches to generate income for war relief. Jones then successfully represented the United States for the first time in 2 winning international amateur team matches, against Canada in 1919 and 1920, earning 3 of a possible 4 points in foursomes and singles play. But his temper issues were getting to him. At St Andrews in 1921, Jones was in the Open Championship, facing the toughest course in the world. But after 11 holes in the 3rd round, he failed to complete the hole. As a result, he quit, walked off the course, tore up his scorecard, and stated his dislike for the old course. And the town did not stay quiet about it. Scottish newspapers wrote, "Master Bobby is just a boy, and an ordinary boy at that. Prodigy who couldn't control his rage, a genius too immature for the weight of his own brilliance." He was waging a war not with opponents but with himself. The world loved his swing but hated his temper, and so did he. After the collapse at St Andrews in 1921, Jones disappeared from the spotlight for a while. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Georgia Tech in 1922 and played for the varsity golf team. Then in 1923, he made a comeback. At the US Open in Inwood, New York, Jones defeated Bobby Cruikshank in an 18-hole playoff. It was his first major championship, but from there, he was unstoppable. In 1926, he became the first man in history to win both the US Open and the British Open in the same year, a feat that they called the double. Then came the US Amateur in 1927, and again in 1928, 10-9 over Philip Perkins. He wasn't just winning, he was dominating. In 1929, he claimed the US Open once again, this time after a 36-hole playoff against Al Espinoza. And through it all, one constant waited for him off the course: Mary Malone, the woman he met back at Georgia Tech. They got married in June of 1924 and settled into a family life in Atlanta, staying out of the spotlight as much as they could. Then came 1930, the year that changed golf forever, not only for Bobby Jones, but for everyone. That year, Jones set out to win what no one else ever had: all 4 major championships of his era in a single calendar year. This is back in the day where the 4 majors were the US Open, the US Amateur, the Open Championship in the UK, and the Amateur Championship, also in the UK. Now, some reports claim that Jones was so confident that he made a bet on himself achieving this feat with British bookmakers before the first tournament of the Grand Slam at odds of 50 to 1. Whilst others claim it was the man Jones beat in the 1923 US Open final, Bobby Cruikshank, who placed the bet after playing alongside Jones when he won a tournament in Augusta by 16 strokes earlier that year. Jones' first step towards the dream Grand Slam was to win the British Amateur at St Andrews on the same course he once walked off in disgrace. But this time, nothing and no one was strong enough to get in the way of Jones. He defeated Roger Weathered 7-6 in the final at St Andrews. Then came the British Open at Royal Liverpool. Jones matched the course record in round 1 with a 2 under par 70, followed by a 72, 74 and 75 to win by 2 strokes over Leo DeJarle and McDonald Smith. Then the US Open at Interlaken Country Club in Minnesota. He was sitting level par after the first 2 rounds, tied for second and 2 shots behind the leader, before shooting a 4 under in round 3 to go into the final round 5 shots clear of second place. He struggled that afternoon, shooting a 3 over par, but managed to hang on and win by 2 strokes. Suddenly, the world was in disbelief because the impossible feat was starting to look possible. When he made it back to Atlanta, he was greeted by a crowd of over 125,000 people celebrating his achievements. But now, all eyes were pointed at the US Amateur at Merion. Jones walked into the game with sheer confidence and will. He qualified and won his early matches with ease before facing his good friend and teammate Jess Sweetser, beating him with a convincing 9-8 victory over 36 holes to face Eugene Homans in the final match. This 36-hole match saw a record gallery of 18,000 people show up to Merion, where Jones went up by 7 after the first 18 holes and went on to win comfortably 8-7 in the final. 4 majors, 2 continents, 1 year. The original Grand Slam was complete. Now the man who placed the bet, whether it was him or Cruikshank, walked away with $60,000, which is worth more than $1 million in today's value from the bet placed earlier in the year on him to win the Grand Slam. But then, just weeks after the final putt dropped, Jones stunned the world once again. On November 17, 1930, Bobby Jones retired to return to his law practice at just 28 years old. Everyone was stunned and assumed that was the end of the legend, but Jones had other plans. After the Grand Slam, Jones didn't just walk away from the game. He walked away at the peak of it. At 28, he was the most admired golfer on earth and was recognized in every town. But the spotlight had become a burden. The massive attention caused Jones to lose his privacy, but no one knew this would be the first domino in the creation of the most iconic golf course in the world. To stay away from the crowd and pressure, Jones wanted to create a private golf club, a place where he and his friends could play golf in peace and quiet. And his friend, Clifford Roberts, a sharp New York investment banker, made it possible. He found an old indigo plantation in Augusta, Georgia from the Civil War era. Quiet, serene, and covered in rolling hills and blooming dogwoods. Jones bought the land back in 1931 for $70,000 and called in the help of world-famous course designer Dr. Alistair Mackenzie, and in early 1933, Augusta National Golf Club was born. Jones had hoped Augusta would host the US Open, but the summer conditions in Georgia made that impossible, and the USGA weren't willing to be flexible on the timing when Jones wanted to have it in April. This resulted in a chain of events which led to the beginning of golf's most prestigious tournament, the Masters. But as that tournament grew over the years, Jones' body began to struggle. He was sadly diagnosed with a rare neurological disease that slowly paralyzed him, and eventually in the late 1940s he was confined to a wheelchair. And in 1958, the town of St Andrews, the very place that once mocked him, named him a freeman of the city.
To take out of my life everything except my experiences at St Andrews, and I'd still have a rich, full life.
Jones had come full circle. The boy who once lost control, the man who walked away from glory, had become something greater. Not just a champion, but the soul of the game itself. He never played for money or swung for fame. He played for the love of the game. And maybe that's why the game loved him back.